past all of them as well. What a move to the 48. Oh, look at this, and onto the straight they come.
Brilliant move there from number 40 to make it through. That left-hander sliding up the inside, going up now over Hawthorne Hill, down Pilgrim's Drop, and it's brilliant stuff here at Brands Hatch.
After a week off, we are back with World GT Championship here at Barcelona for week number 10 of the championship on RaceSpotTV. Hello everybody, my name is Paul Smith, and I'm afraid Peter Mackay is going to be is on his way back from the European Rally Championship. So instead, you've got the delightful Jack Styles joining us here this week. And Jack, well, first of all, welcome back to the World GT Championship, but secondly, Barcelona, what sort of challenge is that here in these GT3s?
It's an interesting challenge. Obviously, it's very well known for the Spanish Grand Prix over the years, a circuit which has produced some incredible racing. But for GT cars, it's maybe not so well known. Obviously, 24-hour series has been here in the past. We've just had a round of the GT World Challenge Europe happened here at just the weekend gone, where we obviously saw that awful crash for the Temple Motorsport car. Thank God all the drivers are okay. But it's going to be an interesting time. It's a slightly interesting format, which could throw up some challenges for the drivers. But Barcelona, it should produce some good racing, especially without that final chicane.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the historic layout. We're looking forward to that. We started the season all the way back in July feels oh so long ago. Silverstone, Jerez, Zandvoort, Suzuka, Misano, Long Beach, Spa and Le Mans with that epic end to the race at Le Mans. Here we've got the final one of our special rounds at Barcelona before next week. It's the final endurance round, and then Daytona to finish off the season at the end of October with 2 45-minute feature races to decide who is champion. And speaking of championships, it's 107 points separating Alex Davidson and Josh Thompson. Josh getting a penalty for the contact between him and Davidson right at the end of that race last time out, which drops him down a few points. Jack Sedgwick just 3 points behind in the NX Racing car in third, ahead of James Boumé, is a further 9 points back. Really close at the top of Pro. Then into your Pro-Am standings, and it is Michael Gray who has just got a slender 2-point lead in his full tilt motorsport car, ahead of Adam Watson in his Altitude Esports by SimStickers car. Adam will admit it's not been his best season so far, and yet he is still in for a championship hunt. Will Guthrie, Jamie Rushworth and Paul Webster don't write those drivers off either in that Pro-Am championship. In Am, it's 1 point that separates Jessica Wilkins and Jonathan Walker. Those two have been so close all the way through the season. It'll be great to see how that pans out, with Ben Altria just 70 points back from Jonathan Walker. And Simon Andre Livingston, 114 points off the leader. Don't write off Simon yet in all of that. And those four are really the main protagonists. Just 1 point separate Ben Gregory and Adam Hedgecock a little bit further down in 5th and 6th place. Teams Championship, well, 9 points separate the WSR Esports Butt Kicker and Altitude Esports by 3M teams. And then WSR Esports are a bit further back, ahead of Altitude Esports by SimStickers. Bayer SimSport 5th ahead of Racing Lab Esports powered by Ford. KRD, Atomic Esports Evo, Prestanda, Nomad and Racing Lab Esports round out your 10 Pro Championship teams. In the Pro-Am, it's a bit more of a one-sided race. Full Tilt Motorsport leading that one by 437 points over the Full Altitude Esports by Mr. Hedge team. Full Tilt Competition are in third, just ahead of Atomic Esports, and then it's Full Tilt Racing, Boosted, Quantumas, DCW Racing, Tech Sport Academy by AMS, and Writer Engineering Esports, rounding out the 10 AM teams. Well, it's been a bit of an interesting start to the event, Jack. Before we were talking beforehand, bit of wet weather in practice. It's still wet offline, but it is drying up out there. How's that going to have a say in how this first race goes?
Obviously, there's no standing water, so the drivers won't have to worry a little bit too much about that. But there is still some dampness out there, as you say, and you know, you may see it in these final closing moments of qualifying. Just seen it actually off the back of the Porsche of Alexander Davidson that we're looking at. So a little bit of spray. The grip may drop a tiny bit through some of these corners. The drivers will have to think about that, especially on that first lap. It's going to be very tricky if you're going offline to make a pass. But I think these drivers, Alexander Davidson getting caught out by it now, actually, on a qualifying lap. So clearly the grip level's not quite there yet, Paul.
Yeah, absolutely. But one thing you note, it's Porsche, Audi, Porsche, and then Ferrari, then another Porsche, and then a Ferrari. It's a real mixed bag at the top of the qualifying here as that clock strikes down to 0. Speaking to Josh Thompson beforehand, I can tell you that he's not feeling too confident in his Ferrari, that Team Redline car. Conditions not suiting it, and the track doesn't really suit it compared to those Porsches.
Yeah, the Porsches will be good here because of those traction zones. With the engine being all the way at the rear, it's over those rear wheels. It's able to get the power down better than any of these other GT3 cars. The front engine cars may struggle here a little bit as well with the high-speed corners. So the BMWs, the Fords, the Mercedes. But the Ford has been coming on strong in recent weeks in the GT3 class. It's really started to show its head as we go on board with Andreas Meyer in one of those Fords. I have to say, it does make a good sound, the Ford. And it is a good-looking car, but it's come on strong. It's started to show its strengths, and maybe we could see it being a bit of a surprise in the world of front-engine cars around this circuit.
Well, we've seen that car coming on from the start of the season, just slowly progressing up through the field. So you're absolutely right there, Jack, that it's really starting to become more into its own here. Is that car long wheelbase, so it does struggle with the quick twisty stuff, which this track doesn't really have the most twisty stuff, but it's very technical in its run around here.
Yeah, he's very technical. You've got a lot of weight changing, a lot of transfer on those tyres, especially through the middle sector of the circuit. So the traction zones as well, of course, that's why the Porsche is so strong around here. You've got a lot of those. You've got to watch out for it. So looking after those tyres, keeping them in check. But I think the Ford has really started to come on strong, as you say. We've seen it progress. A little bit of rework happened in the patch for season 4, and personally, for me, it transformed the car.
Well, it's transformed it for Anders Meyer because he's qualified himself 5th place. And qualifying here, it was all about who could be on track really the last, because the drier it gets, the better it gets for those drivers in qualifying. We have got about half a minute before we go to the grid. But Alex Davidson, James Boumé, I mean, I said don't write him out of the championship. He's got a bit of work to do though. 119 points off of Alex Davidson, but you've got to be up there at the front to be able to contend.
I mean, if I've learned one thing from this series, whether it being driving in some of the early seasons that we both did, Paul, or running teams that actually went on to win championships in this series, anything can happen. And it will go down to the final race at Daytona, all of these championships. And I think that's something these drivers will be keenly aware of, especially those who have been around for some considerable time in this championship.
Well, we will get ourselves set then for the starting grid. And let's take a look at how that comes out. So it's Alex Davidson from WSR Esports Butt Kicker, the Pro Championship leader, starts on pole position, but sharing that front row with James Boumé. Ross McFarlane, Alex's teammate, is on row number 2. Alongside him is Alex Gall, with Anders Meyer and Michael Evdoka sharing row number 3. Row 4 for Josh Thompson and Dennis Grabowski, with Jack Sedgwick and Michael Gray, your first Pro-Am, on row number 5. Row 6 for Axel Sleeptrovic and Ethan Critchley. 7th row of the grid, Victor Wolfson and Gabriel Erdelai, with Nathan Moore and Adam Watson. Then on row number 8, the 9th row, Harry Langford and Ben Hackerson. Row number 10 for Will Guthrie and Phil Samways. Jesse Payne-Wilkins, the top AM driver in qualifying in 21st. That's a good result for him on row number 11, alongside Paul Webster, Ben Altria and Chris Chatterton sharing row number 12. 13th row, Joe Newman and Jonathan Walker. And then behind them, it's Taylor Lane and Josh Boot on row number 14. 15th row, Simon Andre Livingston and Bacon Zelenka. Then number 16, Andy Shield and Ben Gregory, the ever-present in the championship, raced every season. The only driver left who's raced every season of this championship. Ben Benioff and Nick Kirstensen on the next row with Mike Barber and Rhys Saunders. Mike will not be happy with that qualifying. Adam Hedgecock and Nathan Healy round out our 38-car grid here. Just a word of point about Ben Gregory, by the way, as we'll look at Ethan Critchley on screen right now. Ben Gregory been doing it the hard way this season, having to he's been not well at all, so he's working his way through, and it's good to see him continuing on the grid here.
Yes, it certainly is, and the World Sports Car Championship that myself and Ewan O'Leary covered earlier this year, obviously Ben had an interrupted campaign in that championship, so it was great to see him out on track in this one and still enjoying his sim racing. I had many years of racing alongside Ben in the same team in this championship, and we had some great success, so it's incredible to see him, and it's an incredible feat to be the only driver who's done every single season after all these years.
Yeah, 2017 seems oh so long ago, does that. Yeah, I raced in the first 5 seasons and then decided I wasn't quick enough and decided to come onto the commentary box. Right, here we go then. Alex Davidson will lead us away. as we head into the final corner. It's wet offline, so you've got to be careful, and Alex is starting offline here. So he's got to get the jump here to try and get the dry stuff straight away. Green flag in the air. Ross McFarlane's got a good launch as well. You can tell the two teammates are working together, and look at that, there's still spray coming up. Every driver on slick tyres heading towards turn number 1 for the first time here. And it's the two WSR Esports butt kicker cars of Davidson and McFarlane into the lead. Boumet's down a place into third ahead of Alex. Go! There's contact! Bang, bang! And off goes, I believe that's Dennis Grabowski that's gone off. And oh, dearie me, down the order he goes. My goodness, not the start then for Michael Evdoka and Dennis Grabowski, but we still stay green flag racing here.
Yeah, Michael Evdoka and Dennis Grabowski not getting the start they would have wanted, as you say. A little bit of blows coming through turn 3. It's so easily done at this start, but the windscreen wipers were flying as they came down. The start finished straight. There was a lot more spray than I was expecting. A little bit of side-by-side as we head down into turn number 7. Number 77 car making its way through. And yeah, that was, to be fair, a reasonably clean start, Paul. I was expecting a little bit more shenanigans. It looks like a few cars have been held up further back, but pretty much everyone has survived that first corner.
Yeah, Josh Boot has had to take a trip back to pit road. There's a move down the inside, and oh, Michael Gray getting bullied out the way then. And that was, well, it was one or two of the drivers actually. I believe that was Watson was in there, so too was Slijepčević. He followed through as well, and it was Jack Sedgwick who got the shoulders out there. But plenty of action all the way through the field, across the line, end of the first lap. It's Davidson from McFarlane, from Boumet, then Garl, Meyer, Josh Thompson's up 1 place, Ethan Critchley's up 5 because of the incident that happened at turn 3. Here's Nathan Moore, this is on Ben Hackerson, onto the brakes. How late do you dare brake? And look at that, Hackerson on the racing line, able to brake much deeper.
Yeah, and that just shows it's still a little bit slippery offline. Nathan Moore recovering from a poor qualifying by the looks of things, making his way back through the field, but he's where he started. So lap 1 probably not gone the way he would have wanted. Avoid those curbs. We saw that in qualifying, how slippery they were for Alexander Davidson and Ben Hackerson, taking maybe the slightly unconventional line into that corner here at Barcelona. We would usually use some curb, try and open up the entry to the corner as much as possible, but not always the case. Ethan Critchley and Gabriel Azrelli swapping places there through turn number 5. Looks as though the two teammates deciding to work together to try and close the gap to the cars ahead.
Joe Newman in that big Mustang getting his way through into 20th place then on Jesse Payne Wilkins. And now we'll look towards turn 9. Blind crest to this one. And Jonathan Walker, again another one who's trying to make his way forward. And up to 22nd, 4 places gained for Jonathan in this one, and that means that he's the second place down, but Jesse Payne Wilkins right in front. Don't forget, these two are fighting for the AM Championship.
Also, we could see some interesting moves here. Jonathan Walker obviously trying to make up as many positions as possible. The AM Championship is so close. Every race is going to count. Every single point is going to count. So beating your competitor is going to be the crucial part. I just spotted in the bottom of the screen, Paul, the windscreen wipers are still going. So the track is drying, but it's not drying maybe as quickly as I expected. A little bit of water offline. You can see it ahead. So over the course of this race, I expect to see the track starting to dry out. It's actually my first experience of commentating on a wet track, believe it or not. So this is going to be really interesting for me to see how it drives. I haven't got much experience in the wet because I haven't had the time to race.
Oh dear, we've got some drivers further down. Who was that? That wasn't Adam Watson. That was, looking down, Phil Samways, who's taken to the pit road. Dennis Grabowski actually has a mechanical meatball flag. So Dennis is going to have to come onto pit road. Fortunately, you do get a free fast repair here in this series, but in this first race, it's a 30-minute race, this first one. You're not expecting any planned pit stops. Here's what happened then to Evdoka and Grabowski at the start.
Looks as though the two just tangled together. It just seems that two paths collided, and not really sure think there was much could be done by either driver. I think it's just the calamities of the first corner really is what has led to that. But Michael Doka and Denis Grabowski obviously losing quite a lot of time. Grabowski's day now going from bad to worse by having that mechanical meatball flag. Here we go from the aerial view. Maybe looks as though Grabowski was trying to squeeze of Doka, but if Doka was still giving him plenty of room, so it just looks as though 2 lines into one are never going to work.
Yeah, that's always asking for trouble there. Here's what happened to Phil Samways then. In that full tilt machinery, and I think it's Grabowski that he's got tackled with there as well. And that's 2 cars all going into the one corner, and you can see Grabowski braking on the racing line, and just the two lines coming together there.
I wonder whether Phil Samways was... I know there was a long time while he was alongside, but I wonder whether Phil Samways wasn't quite expecting him to be there. Replay on your screens of Benjamin Gregory now in the 113, and again another example of 2 lines into one is never going to work, and that's just unfortunate for Gregory. He's ended up in the tyre wall outside, but he's got himself back going again, currently running down in 34th position towards the rear of your field. Looking at Alex Gall following the driver of James Boumet in 3rd place. It looks as though the 2 WSR Esports drivers out front have got away, and the Porsche is showing how strong it can be around this circuit. But the Audi and the Ferrari, they're still close. They've not lost as much time as maybe we were expecting.
No, absolutely not. I mean, Davidson's making a run for it, and to be honest, Ross McFarlane right now, for the rest of the season, is going to be very much playing rear gunner wherever he can to support his teammate, because Ross, very experienced driver in this championship, 4-time champion in this series, and he's not going to be competing for a championship again this season, but he'll sure as heck be looking to help his teammate be able to get that achievement. Amazingly, Alex Davidson, the last 2 seasons he's been a championship contender, and both times he's not been able to win that championship.
It's an interesting one because Alexander Davidson is really a driver who's come on strong in recent years, and it is surprising that he hasn't been able to finish off that championship. But maybe this year could be his, or this season could be his season. Obviously, a nice, well, I will say comfortable. You never have a comfortable gap in this series unless you're leading by multiple hundreds of points. But you know, he's got a bit of a buffer at the head of the championship, leading the race as he is today. It means he is going to stretch that lead out as they stand at the moment, regardless of where his championship contenders finish. So, you know, it's just going to be ticking them off one by one, get those results in. Of course, the endurance race next week, you've only got one opportunity to score points, so he's going to have a good race there. That is Josh Thompson heading up the inside of Andros Meyer in the Ford Mustang, and the Ferrari looks as though he's got the inside line into the next set of corners, and he has got the move done. I thought they were going to have a little bit of side-by-side there, Paul, but Josh got it done.
Yeah, did get that job done indeed. He's got his set sight now, or his sight set, should I say, not set sight, on Alex Gall in front of him. And those 2, both Ferrari shod cars, and Alex Gall, he's slowly got himself into how this championship works, and the driving that you need to be able to do in this championship. And Alex has really come on leaps and bounds in the second half of the season so far, and it's good to see the Apex Racing Academy driver up there, 4th place, right behind former champion of James Boumet. But Thompson, he means business. He wants to get as many points as he can to try and jump Alex Davidson when it comes to the end of the day.
Of course, obviously, yes, and with the reverse grid going to be playing into hand, if he does finish behind Davidson, he could potentially get a bit of an advantage with where he stands at the moment. But of course, obviously, with Josh Thompson having that deficit in the championship, it is only 100 points that can be closed very quickly in this series, as we've seen before, Paul, both of us. But it's every point is going to matter for Josh, because you don't want to be going into that final round with a huge deficit to try and overcome. You want it to be as small as possible to make the most of those final 2 races. Daytona is usually a hectic round. I've done a few in this championship at Daytona, and you know, it really is just the definition of anything can happen. And I know Josh will know that, because he has been around in this series for a long time. And that experience, I think, is going to be really vital for his championship challenge. You were saying about Alex Gal and learning the series. It's a series that takes a while to learn. It changes week on week. The racing is, I would say, is different to the way that some other series race, especially in the reverse grid races when the class is mixed. So that dynamic, that learning how to make the most of that, is critically important for a championship challenge.
10 minutes have gone in this race. Davidson has got a 1.4 second lead over his teammate of Ross McFarlane, who's got a further 1.2 ahead of James Boumet and Alex Gal. So those are pretty much staying as they are. Here's one driver trying to work his way back forward, Michael Gray. Of course, remember, leading in the Pro-Am Championship coming into this week, but only by 2 points over the driver who's directly in front of him, Adam Watson for Altitude Esports. We know how exciting Adam could be out there. I can't broadcast the nickname that his team boss has got for him, but let's just say it's it's quite apt, really, for Adam's racing.
I can only imagine, knowing Mark. So it's Adam is a very entertaining driver to watch, that is for sure. And of course, obviously in this pack as well, Ben Hackerson 1, 2 and 3 in that Pro-Am Championship. Hackerson returning for this series. I saw that he was back, Paul, and I thought, oh, it's a name I haven't heard for a long time, and he has been out of the championship for some time. But it's great to see him back in the championship. It's great to see him up at the sharp end as well in the Pro-Am class and taking it to these championship contenders. He could be a little bit of a kind of thorn in the side of some of these, but Michael Gray and Adam Watson at the moment just taking their time. We're approaching the halfway point in this first race of the evening, and it may be that Michael Gray is just learning where Adam Watson's weak points are. Where can he make a chance or an attempt at an overtake and make the most of that?
Jonathan Walker in AM has had an issue on this lap, and he's dropped down the order. He was in 22nd place. He's dropped down to 28. So here's what happened then. This is at the hairpin, and it's just lazy. It's just a lot of those lazy spins, carrying a little bit too much speed, maybe just slightly offline onto the damp stuff, and around it goes. And that's going to affect Jonathan Walker in his AM Championship run. But Ben Hackerson, I tell you what, in that Porsche, again, talk about another driver who's taking his time just to get back into the swing of things. Ben Hackerson is looking quicker and quicker week on week.
Yeah, and that's great to see, and obviously, as you say, taking the time to get back into the swing of things, but that's not always the worst thing to do. As you see in the background, Nathan Moore trying to get past, well, actually no, that's William Guthrie going past Nathan Moore, so Nathan Moore is now...
Slow down.
It's a slow down, okay, so that would make sense as to why Nathan Moore has now lost positions on where he started in this race. But yeah, as I say, it's great to see Ben back up at the sharp end. Always a great racer, and you know, clearly using that Porsche's advantages that you have around here. Obviously, I would probably say at Le Mans last week, I didn't get a chance to catch the broadcast, but it's usually one of the weaker cars. It's not quite as good in a straight line, but it will be showing its strengths around here. The same with the Audi as well. The Audi's very good in those mid-speed corners because it's a shorter wheelbase, mid-engine. It's got a good front end on it as well, and it can rotate. So that car will be coming into its own. As we say, obviously, the front engine cars, they are actually few and far between in this series, really. There's not as many as I was maybe expecting, but they are still strong around this circuit, and that's been shown by Andres Myri up at the front of the field. While we're on the subject of different car types, he's still in it, Paul. He's still in and around. He's not really lost time to the leaders, so a good job done in a car that I maybe wasn't expecting to be able to do that.
Yeah, Anders Myri's really been going well the second half of the season, and always great to see that Mustang getting up towards the front end of the field. We're sticking with this fight at the moment at the top of Pro-Am, and still Michael Gray holding position. Now, with where these drivers are, Michael Gray can almost afford to sit behind Adam Watson here, because for the positions that they're in, 12th and 13th places, there's only, oh, actually there's 2 points difference between them, so that would, as things stand, that would put them equal on points in Pro-Am.
Maybe not for long.
Oh my goodness, and Michael Gray had to get out of it. Ben Hackerson threw it in there, but Hackerson can't make it stick.
I saw that coming the corner before because Ben Hackerson got very close to the back of Michael Gray, and I thought, he's thinking of a move here, but I didn't expect it to come at the next corner. But Ben Hackerson, a good attempt, maybe not quite good enough, but it has allowed Adam Watson to get away at the front of the field. Michael Gray probably now going to be looking in his rearview mirror a little bit more than he was a lap ago. Ben Hackerson has tried, but I'll tell you what, don't count out William Guthrie. He's caught up to these guys and really latched on. He could be a good challenger here for a podium position, but as you say, as they stand at the moment, equal points in the Pro-Am Championship going into race 2 of the evening, and of course that will really start to turn up the wick even more on that championship battle, and of course they will be starting next to each other on the grid if they finish as they are.
Worth pointing out Will Guthrie as well, 3rd place in Pro-Am, so he'll be wanting to get himself up a few places here as well. If you are new to the World GT Championship, it's worth pointing out that the points that they accumulate in these races are based on the overall finishing position. There's just one set of points between all the drivers, so it's not like you've got individual points for each class. It's just one set of points, and wherever you finish overall, those are the points that you're taking into your respective championship. So that's why you'll see people like Will Guthrie fighting with Nathan Moore to stay ahead, or even Adam Watson try and get in the back of Axel Slijepcevic and try and get involved in there to gain more positions. It's a different style of championship, whereas in other series that you see here on RaceSpotTV, as Will Guthrie gets a good run through 7 and 8, in other series that you see here on RaceSpotTV where it's multiple classes of cars, say for instance tomorrow evening the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge JB, that's got individual points championships for both Pro and Am. You don't get that here, and it's a completely different style of racing.
And I think that's one of the big dynamic differences of this series compared to others, as you say, where you have to consider the fact that, yes, Nathan Moore is a pro driver. He's an incredibly successful driver in sim racing, but beating him, that counts in the championship. Now, obviously, I'm more used to the style of championship that you say is with the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge GB, where each class, whether it be Pro, Pro-Am or Am, have different points, and it's separate, and it's based on their finishing position within class. As Ben Hackerson has another look down the inside, it's going to give Michael Gray the inside for turn 2, but Ben Hackerson still got his nose in, going to have the inside for turn 3. It's going to be the better line. He's going to get through into 2nd position in class. I could see William Guthrie having to think about following his teammate through there, but oh, sorry, not his teammate, but trying to put a challenge on. But Michael Gray going to look at the outside into turn number 4. It's just not going to work. Turn outside into that corner in GT cars is very hard to make work. So Ben Hackerson up into 2nd position. That has championship ramifications as well for Adam Watson. That should give him the lead in the championship if they finish as they are with 11 minutes and 53 seconds to go.
Yeah, great stuff from Ben, and it looks like he was going to be good for that move for the past couple of laps as well, and he's fair rocketing away. Oh, but out into the gravel there for Ben.
That might be a slowdown.
No, it isn't. I can tell you that now. It's not. So, but yeah, he went that far off track that, yeah, you could possibly end up triggering a slowdown penalty. Could Ben, but he was rocketing away from Michael Gray in that one. So that Porsche is really dialed in right now how the conditions are, as you say, coming into that final 11 minutes of this race. So if I'm Adam Watson, I'm just looking forward. I'm not looking in my rear view mirror. But if Hackerson comes a knocking, you know he's going to make a move. Look back to the front though. Josh Thompson is there with Alex Gall and with James Boumé. The thing is, as the great man himself, Murray Walker, used to say, catching is one thing, passing is quite another.
I was waiting for that line to come out, And but it is entirely true. We've seen it before on so many occasions in every single form of motorsport that someone's rocketed up to the back of another driver and then can't pass them. And that pace differential, these guys at the front, they've been so close on pace all race long. Yes, Josh Thompson has made up a position on where or 2 positions on where he started, excuse me, but he's kind of stalled here in 5th place. James Boumet's been leading the round. I did see a few laps ago that Alex Gall through this corner had a little bit of an incident running a little bit wide, but it seems as though it didn't cost him any time, or he has been able to make that back up. So Josh Thompson, yes, he is gaining, he is closing in. Those endurance lights will be slightly more distracting in the rearview mirror for Alex Gall, but Alex Gall's a professional at this pool. He'll know to ignore that.
Yeah, headlights, you know, don't really pay attention to be honest, but but you know, have it how you like set up, and Josh obviously likes to have those lights just to make himself extra visible in people's rearview mirrors. Across the line, under 10 minutes remaining, Alex Davidson still with just 1.3 seconds between him and his teammate. They're actually catching up to Nathan Healy, who's had issues in this race. And Nathan, to be fair to him, is usually good at letting the leaders through, so I don't see him being a thorn in Alex Davidson's side. But Davidson, I think he's very much been comfortable at the front there. I'm looking at the Peter loves this, by the way, the 5-lap average times. Davidson and McFarlane are 1:41.9's average lap time per lap for the last 5 laps. James Boumet, exactly 1:42. So all those 3rd and 4th and 5th are all in that 1:42.0 mark.
So they've kind of got a couple of tenths on those drivers behind, but I mean, when you think about it, they have just been very comfortable at the front. They've done their thing. I've seen it from Ross 1,000 times before in his sim racing career, and the same from Alexander Davidson. They just settle into the race, do what they need to do, and make their way away at the front. Obviously, James Boumet has had a little bit of a challenge from behind from Alex Gall. He's not really made much of a move, but he's been a threat, and obviously the same with Gall with Thompson. So they would have maybe lost just that. That's maybe where they're losing those few tenths. I have no doubt that James Boumet could do that 1:49 4-lap average. All 5 of these drivers in the top 5 can. But it just may be that the WSR esports drivers have got away. Alexander Davidson probably knows that Ross isn't going to challenge him. He hasn't got to worry about attack from behind, and that's just allowed him to focus forward, and that can be worth tenths across the lap.
Going my way, Jack, with the voice there, but yeah, it's such fine margins between these drivers at the top. It really is, and certainly great to see how close it is out there, and the level of competition that we're having in the World GT Championship is certainly is absolutely exemplary. Well, for those of you keeping abreast of everything that's going on, the top 3, Davidson, McFarlane and Boumet, pretty much as they were from the start of the race. Boumet getting lost out to Ross McFarlane, who got the jump at the start along with Alex Davidson, and that's why he's in 3rd place right now. But you're looking back to Pro-Am, it's still Pro-Am leader Adam Watson in 12th, and in 13th Ben Hackerson. Michael Gray and Will Guthrie are 3rd and 4th in class, and they're losing time to Hackerson here, and they've got Nathan Moore right behind them putting the pressure on. I can tell you in AM as well, Jesse Payne Wilkins is still in 21st place, and Jesse's still doing a good job in AM. The next AM down is Ben Altria in 25th, and Simon Andre Livingston in 26th place. So that's where the top 3 of the different categories are right now on track. I don't think you should see too much of a daring move between these two, because well, Michael Gray's with Full Tilt Motorsport, Will Guthrie's Full Tilt Racing. They're under the same awning, it's just different teams.
Yeah, I think their worry has to be Nathan Moore behind. That gap has closed a little bit, and Moore will be anxious to try and score some more points, bearing in mind that he is quite a way behind his fellow pro-class competitors. So it could see some late race moves here from Nathan Moore. I'm surprised he hasn't made up more positions throughout this race. He's kind of been very stagnant on where he qualified. Could be the circuit, maybe not suiting his driving style so much. I have seen that in the past. It's very, very possible. But as you say, the Full Tilt Racing and Full Tilt Motorsport machines, I think they're just going to work together here. Michael Gray obviously being the one in the championship challenge, it makes sense to get him as many points as possible. And you mentioned Jesse Payne-Wilkins. Actually, he's in an incredible position in the championship to extend his lead. With the lowest score of Jonathan Walker being down in P28, that's going to extend that lead by some considerable amount. Bearing in mind it was a 1-point advantage coming into today.
Yeah, certainly. I wouldn't write out, by the way, Will Guthrie, because he is third in class in the championship, so he'll be wanting to make his own title charge himself as we go along in this race. And there's Nathan Moore we're on board with. Can't really move forward or progress forward any more than that. I can tell you, by the way, in this race there is one driver who is on the bubble in terms of incident points. One more incident point would give them a drive-through penalty. I'm not going to say who, but I can see it in sim. So there is one driver very worried out there. And over a 30-minute race, as here's what's happened to Kirstens and Dennis Grabowski. So Grabowski off to the inside, Kirstens to the outside, and we've got a car onto pit road as well. On the live pictures, that's Hackerson.
That is, yes, and that's not a planned pit stop. Hackerson was going backwards into the pit stall. I saw it on my screens. I think we saw it live on yours. And Hackerson's day has just gone from amazing to worse. And he's down onto pit lane. He's going to have he has taken his fast repair. It looks as though there was some contact. Didn't quite see what happened there as we go back to the battle between Alex Gall and Josh Thompson. Replay up on your screen. Oh no, I'm sure we've both seen this before, Paul. Those Porsches, they can be very sensitive at the high-speed corners. It looks as though Ben Hackerson has just been caught out, lost the rear end, and around he has gone. Nothing more than an innocent mistake in that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, don't forget that painted surface off to the side still be a little bit damp as well, so it will just break traction there for Hackerson, and well, around he goes into the wall, not assisted. But I was just going to point out, half an hour race, 15 incidents is the limit that you get a drive-through penalty on. And to be fair to most of the drivers out there, they're all single digits. It's just one or two drivers that are a little bit pushing the limits and the thresholds.
I'm not as fortunate as you to have the hand of God and see the incident points of each driver, but 15x over 30 minutes, it is quite generous. Obviously, with 1x every 2 minutes, I'd probably say that's better than most iRacing special events actually in incident limits. So these drivers can push the limits a little bit, rack up those 1x's, pushing 4 positions when they need to. But I'm with some of the contact we've seen, I can see that some drivers may be getting close to that. Obviously, 4 car contacts and you're over that limit, and that can be very easy to rack up in 2 or 3 laps.
I will say the tactic that we used to have in the touring cars was you've got that many instants to play with, use them all. So as you're going into the final 2 minutes of this race, it is still Alex Davidson leading. It's grown a little bit as that gap at the front to 1.6 seconds over Ross McFarlane. James Boumé still leading this quartet of cars with Gall, Thompson and Meyer right behind. Gabriel Erdelai been quietly going about business, but up 7 places in this race. That is joint. Oh, actually, I was about to say the joint best, but it's not, because Reece Saunders has made the most places up in this race. But 7 places gained, though, in this race is good going for Gabriel.
I have to say, it has been quite a static field. When you look at the positions gained, you've obviously got the outliers, as you say, Andy Shield as well, another one who's up 8 with Reece Saunders. A couple who've lost a couple of positions here and there, and obviously the cars that we've seen in strife throughout the race, the like of Michael Avdoka, Ben Hackerson and Dennis Grabowski. So it has been a very static field, maybe showing that this is a circuit that is a little bit more difficult to overtake. You haven't got that many big braking zones where you can throw it down the inside and get it stopped. And especially with the dampness we've got offline, that can be interesting. Obviously, we have got the question of what's it going to be like for the second race, and we could start to pull out all the conspiracy cards as it's going to be a torrential downpour or bone dry. So we will see. And speaking of slowing it down the inside, we've just seen a replay of Ben Gregory. I believe that might have been on Dennis Skrebowski.
It was.
And both of them ending up in the gravel. Maybe a little bit of a last-minute lunge from Ben Gregory, but a pass that wasn't quite completed successfully.
The worst part for Grabowski is if his day hasn't been bad enough, he's got a black flag now as well. So he's got to have a penalty, serve a drive-through penalty in this one before the end of the race. And speaking of the end of the race, we're on the final lap of this race right now, and it's still close between Gal and Boumet. Don't see any moves being made between these two. You don't have the heavy braking zone down into turn number 10, and that's because it's the bit more of the open corner, the more open hairpin. As through we go. Ethan Critchley has picked up a drive-through penalty on the last lap, so that'll add a ton of time, about 45 seconds onto his race time at the end. But this man at the front is not worried about that at all. Alex Davidson from pole position to checkered flag. He sees another race win in the books for the WSR Esports Butt Kicker driver. The rest of them coming across there. McFarlane second, James Boumet holds on to third place ahead of Alex Gall and Josh Thompson. The rest of your field then coming through. Adam Watson is going to be your top placed. Pro-Am, there was a WSR car off in the last corner, I did notice, as come across the line. And Jesse Payne Wilkins will be coming through to see the checkered flag. And I could tell it was Nathan Moore who had a mechanical meatball flag, who was off at the last corner on the last lap. Oh, a bit of excitement towards the end there, Jack.
Yes, indeed, and it looks as though Nathan Moore, his race, again, one that maybe not we expected from that driver. He's gone from bad to worse. He's put a challenge on Will Guthrie, and he's hit the sausage dog curb, and we saw exactly the same thing happen, maybe not quite so dramatic, to the driver of Adam Isaacson in the World Sports Car Championship earlier on this year at Barcelona, hitting that curb, and it bounced the car in the air. So incredibly unlucky for Nathan Moore right at the end.
We do have to wait for the final two cars to cross the line before we can give you the results because of that black flag for Ethan Critchley. We've got to wait for the simulator to work out where that will place him in those final results. This is the 217 of Nick Kirstens, who we saw in that incident, heading out of turn number 3 across the line, and that means that we do have official results. So here we go. Here is your results after, of course, the spin of the wheel to decide where we are going to be getting a reverse grid, and it's going to be a small one. It's 10 is the reverse grid. Well, let's see how that all pans out for them. But these drivers at the front, they'll be happy with that. Alex Davidson, race winner, 1.8 seconds ahead of his WSR Esports Butt Kicker teammate of Ross McFarlane. Sorry about that, we appear to have just lost our audio there, but we should be back now. Yeah, so it was a top 10 that was a reverse grid. Axel Slijepčević then is your pole sitter for race number 2. Adam Watson, your top Pro-Am driver in the results there, ahead of Michael Gray, Will Guthrie, Paul Webster. Chris Chatterton, Joe Newman ahead of Michael Avdoka, Nathan Moore, Harry Langford and Jesse Payne Wilkins. And rest of the drivers, Taylor Lane, Anders Shield with Ben Altria then showing as the winning AM driver, was able to get Simon Andre Livingston at the end then, and Jonathan Walker Actually, no, Jesse Payne Wilkins was the top AM, should I say. So second and third for Altria and Livingston, with Jonathan Walker. Good recovery drive into 25th ahead of Bacon Zelenka, Rhys Saunders, Mike Barber, Ben Hackson and Ethan Critchley. Ben Bedworth, Adam Hedgecock, Ben Gregory, Dennis Grabowski and Nick Kirstens all on the lead lap. Nathan Healy 1 lap down, and drivers who did not finish: Phil Samways and Josh Boot. So that is the end of that first race of the evening. The good news is, though, we've got an hour-long main race coming up for you in just about 5 or 10 minutes' time. And Jack, results of that first one. Great drive from Alex Davidson. Started on pole, was able to just drive away at the front.
Yeah, Alex Davidson, a storming drive all the way through, a lights to flag victory. It's what he would have wanted for his championship charge. So exactly what he needed. He'll pull out that advantage at the front of the field over Josh Thompson in the championship. And Josh obviously trying to make up as many positions as he could, but it looks as though it just wasn't quite there for him. We were talking offline, he'd said to you he had a little bit of concern about the Ferrari, maybe not quite as competitive as he wanted it to be this week, but it seemed to be reasonably competitive. The pace was there or thereabouts, so good on Josh for getting the position he did, and obviously being ahead. And the reverse we're going to have in race 2 is reasonably small. That means that all the pro drivers should be together again. I think we're going to see an incredibly exciting open to that race as people get themselves back into position. And Alex Davidson, I'm not sure how much risk he'll take at the start of this next one.
And it's also the question of what the weather's going to throw to us as well, because we had that dampness in race 1. Didn't really affect too much. I was actually surprised, as you were, at that start, that it wasn't a bit more treacherous, but certainly we don't know what the weather's going to throw to us. That could be a real twist in the tail of the second race.
Yeah, and this is the joys of the new weather system in having that rain and almost the unknown unpredictability. The drivers will get a short period of time of acclimatization to the circuit before the race begins, but that's still not very long. And if it's incredibly wet, the drivers have got a lot of relearning to do, really, running offline, working out where the grip is going to be. And I think you're going to see a lot of experimentation if it is wet in the opening laps of the next race. But if it's dry, I think the drivers may also be taken a little bit by surprise on how much easier it might be to pass, with it obviously being drier offline. The dampness offline may be the reason why we saw a little bit more of a stale field in that first race, but the second race, if it's dry, I think we can see a lot more movement in that field.
Yeah, we certainly could. We are just waiting for the second race session to come up here. Good race win for Adam Watson in Pro-Am, and also for Jesse Payne Wilkins, 20th place in the end. That's a really good result in Am to get those points in the bank.
Yeah, as you say, getting those points in the bank, especially for Jesse Payne Wilkins, to really extend the gap at the front of the field, with Jonathan Walker having a bit of a poor race and that spin down at turn number 5. Sorry, I had to look at my track map to remember what turn he spun on, but just to, that's going to hurt his championship, especially one that's so close and every point is going to count. Obviously, then Pro-Am standings with Ben Hackison coming into strife, they are going to be equal going into the next race, so I think we could see a little bit of battling between those two drivers as to maybe who wants to have a little bit of advantage going into next week and that final endurance race. Obviously, endurance racing does sometimes throw up a bit of a surprise. Drivers who are more consistent, they've got more of a chance to show their hand in those endurance races and play a little bit with the strategy. Races can be won or lost on strategy, as we both know, Paul, so I think that is a very interesting dynamic going into this second race.
I just want to quickly touch on, whilst we're getting ourselves set, we haven't talked about this throughout this series so far, but the championship drivers, they're all fighting for not just the championships, which you get a trophy for being in first, second or third in class, and also the teams get a championship trophy each for winning the respective class of teams, but also the top 3 in class will be getting a prize from 3M. That's yet to be decided, looking at the rule book. Next Level Racing, with their continuing support of the championship as well, the top 3 the winners of each class. So in Pro Driver gets a GT Elite wheel plate edition, an ERS 3 seat, and an Elite Direct monitor mount. The top Pro-Am driver gets a GT Elite Light wheel plate edition, and the AM driver who's champion gets a GT Racer. So those are the prizes from Next Level Racing as well. For that, so really good to be able to have those prizes on offer for the championship, and it's great to see some rich, long-lived sponsors supporting this championship as well. 3M have been around for quite a while, and at Next Level Racing, when they come on board, they've really sort of stepped up the championship as well. So yeah, as we get ready for the next race, though, I can tell you there is no rain in the forecast.
Okay, so that's gonna maybe what I was expecting with it being Spain. Okay, it is October, but Spain is one of those countries that is typically warmer and drier, so no rain is an interesting one. As you say, those prizes as well, especially good. It's great to have those prizes. 3M have been a supporter of the series for a long time now, and their kit has always been good. I know that my dad's friend's always been a user of 3M for his motorsport activities, so you know, it's great to have those and prizes. And as well, as you say, with Next Level Racing, that jump to a rig, some people might be racing on with the wheel attached to a desk on an office chair, and I can tell you now that doing this during a race it can be a little bit distracting. So going to a fixed rig, maybe not quite like the one I've got behind me, but it is a big difference in how much easier it makes sim racing, and that you've got a fixed platform, and for those drivers to maybe, you know, that's a great opportunity for them if they can get hold of those prizes.
Well, we will see what happens in this next hour-long race. Stick around, because race number 2 of the evening is coming up after these messages.
Them as well. What a move for the 48. Oh, look at this, and onto the straight they come.
Brilliant move there from the number 40 to make it through that left-hander, sliding up the inside, going up now over Hawthorne Hill, down Pilgrim's Drop, and it's brilliant stuff here at Brands Hatch.
Welcome back to coverage of the World GT Championship. This is week number 10 of season 16 of this championship. Paul Smith and Jack Styles here in the commentary box. No, that's not my. That's not MJF coming out here. That is our music. But yeah, certainly, Jack. Drivers, I think they'll be a lot happier seeing those conditions that we've got on screen right now.
Yes, no rain, so the track is completely dry, so going offline to overtake should be a little bit easier in this second race. One thing to note though, Paul, that track temperature, it is a little bit higher, which means that it will be a little bit less grip. So what we've gained back in not having a wet track, we have lost a little bit in having a slightly warmer one. So those drivers will have a little bit to adjust to, but adjusting to a slightly warmer track temperature, far easier than adjusting to a sodden circuit.
I think we've got a commentary box here that's both losing their voices, so this could be an interesting hour-long race. Yeah, we've got a 1 hour race with a well, it's not a mandated pit stop, but given that there is a fuel cell limit of 65%, you're going to be coming into the pits in this race. So certainly expect strategy to come into play, and certainly that'll have a big effect on the drivers' races here today. And that top 10 inverted grid as well, don't forget that. We've actually got 35 drivers. We've lost 3 drivers from the start of last race, so we'll see how we get on with this one. But with that, the practice session, it is over, and it is now going to be time to get themselves ready for the second race of the evening. I can tell you Josh Boot has had some wheel issues, not able to change gear, so yeah, that's why he's not in this one. Axel Slipjovic and Victor Wolfson start on the front row of the grid with Jack Cedric and Gabriel Erdelai on row number 2. Row 3 for Anders Meyer and Josh Thompson. Alex Gall and James Boumé then on row number 4, with the 5th row of Ross McFarlane and race 1 winner Alex Davidson. Adam Watson, Michael Gray, they continue their fight on row number 6 with Will Guthrie and Paul Webster. Then on row number 7, row 8 for Chris Chatterton and Joe Newman, with Michael Avdoka, Nathan Moore on the row number 9. Row 10 it is for Harry Langford and Jesse Payne-Wilkins, with Taylor Lane and Andrew Shield then on row 11. Row 12 for Ben Altria and Simon Andre Livingston. The 13th row, Jonathan Walker, Baker Zelenka with Rhys Saunders and Mike Barber on row 14. Ben Haxton and Ben Bennyworth on the row number 15. Adam Hedgecock and Ben Gregory then on the 16th row of the grid, with row 17 shared by Dennis Grabowski and Nathan Healy. Josh Boots will be hoping that his technical issues have been sorted now.
Does look like he has taken his place on the grid right at the back of this field. So as you say, hopefully Josh Boot got his technical issues sorted and he will be going from the rear of the field as they start on the formation lap. Of course, as you say, that top 10 reverse grid, 65% fuel limit, meaning that I think even Scott Dixon couldn't make that fuel tank last an hour in these cars. So probably around the halfway mark, about 40 minutes into the race, we'll be seeing these cars dive down onto the pit lane. Expect some interesting strategy calls. You always get that in the World GT Championship. Someone might try something different.
They certainly might do so indeed, but the pace car is going to pull off into the pit road. We're under the orders of Axel Slipjovic from pole position then. When will he get onto that loud pedal? He's going to go now, and it's green flag racing here. Jack Cedric tried to follow him, but Victor Wolfson diving into the slipstream as they're going down the start and finish straight then. Axel Slipjovic just not knowing which side to go, left or right. He doesn't want to give a slipstream to anyone, but into turn number 1, it's him ahead of Wolfson and Cedric. Rest of them coming through the field, and Josh Thompson's around. Was it contact? Was it just cold tyres? 2 full tilt cars around as well. Oh my goodness, this has been not the good start. That's Paul Webster and Will Guthrie.
I think that was contact for Josh Thompson that sent him around. We'll get a replay up on your screen, but I can tell you now that he is a finisher for this race. That is going to be massive championship ramifications for Alexander Davidson. All of a sudden, the pressure has just been taken down a notch. There's more instance towards the rear of your field as Livingston is around in the number 2 Mustang, causing a roadblock. That looked like the V2 Milt Motorsport cars got, well, no, sorry, it wasn't. It was Adam Hedgecock and Nathan Healy got held up in that one towards the rear of your field. So a few incidents on this opening lap, but Axel Sluchvich got a good jump there, Paul, and he had enough of a gap into turn 1 that he was able to get away and get through the carnage.
Well, yeah, and how things turn in just one race, it is incredible to see that. So Sliptrovic ahead of Sedgwick, who's ahead of Victor Wolfson, to change the position for those two. And then it's Gabriel Erdelai. Now Erdelai will be wanting to be a bit of a thorn in the side of Wolfson, Sedgwick and Sliptrovic to try and help out not just the team in the teams championship, but also help out Alex Davidson, who, get this, is already up to 7th place. That's a gain of 3 positions here behind James Boumé.
Yeah, so that's an excellent start there for Alexander Davidson. He's got past his teammate Ross McFarlane as well, so those two I suspect will work together as they head through the field. A replay on your screen of the start crash for Josh Thompson, and it was 2 lines into 1 again between him and Andres Myrie in the number 20 Mustang. So Thompson goes around, he's gone right to the back of the field and decides that's day done. He doesn't want to try and come back through the field. I think he could have thrown away a few points there as Josh, but he's decided that he didn't want to.
Ben Hackerson, Simon Andrew Livingston and Paul Webster all with mechanical meatball warning flag, and here's what happened to the 2 full tilt drivers, and it all just got a little bit checked up in that mid-pack. And that's what could be so dangerous, as that's what happened to Livingston. That's what got the mechanical meatball warning flag. It will look a little bit earlier on, down into the hairpin. And again, it's just 3 into 1. He's on the inside. Nowhere to go in all of that. As Alex Gall's dropping down the order, I see on now timing tower on the left-hand side of your screen.
Now that is an interesting one. What's happened here to Alex? He's carried on, so I suspect that could have been a slowdown there for the Apex Racing Academy driver, Paul. But you know, for those drivers, especially that incident down into turn 5 that involved Livingston in the Mustang, I think I have to admit I've never really thought about 3 wide into that corner. Maybe in a small Formula car, but in big GT3 cars, I'm not really sure whether that would be the case. Here's the replay of what's happened with Alex Gall. He's hit the curb on the inside. Now, could that have been enough to get him a slowdown?
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure, but I think it might have been. And he's slowed right up there. Now, the iRacing slowdown system has been adjusted in recent weeks, so you don't lose quite as much time as you did before, and I think that might have played into his hands there, but he's now behind Michael Evdoka and the Pro-Am leader, Adam Watson. He's had a great start to this race, Paul. He's up to P9, making some great strides into this field. Yeah,
that's a gain of 2 places for Adam in all of this. He'll be happy to see that, and that, of course, ahead of Michael Evdoka, who's up 7 places after Evdoka had that, how shall we say, dramatic end to his race in race number 1. As they come through turn number 5, through the nothing corner of turn 6, and then onto the brakes at the bottom of the hill, turn 7. Such a tricky section, that through the left, through the right, you end up clipping that sausage curb. Now, me and Peter Mackay, if you've ever watched our coverage here of the World GT Championship, you'll know our opinions, shall we say, on sausage curbs.
Yeah, and I think I know those opinions, and I have to admit I agree with you on sausage stock curbs. Well, we saw it in race 1. That's the effect they can have, and in the sim world, they might snap a wheel out of your hand, but we've seen some nasty incidents in the past. Of course, Abby Eaton at Circuit of the Americas, where Formula 1 will be heading this weekend, in recent years, breaking her back on a sausage stock curb. So, yeah, I think you can probably defer my opinions on sausage stock curbs from that comment. I don't like them.
Yeah, completely agree. As we go across the line then, Sliptrovic still leading this one ahead of Cedric and Victor Wolfson. Gabriel Erdelai in 4th ahead of Anders Meyer 5th. Michael Evdoka's just made the move on Adam Watson. I think Adam Watson would be clever to not fight too hard there in that one. Pick and choose your fights. The problem is Adam Watson, he picks and fights with anybody.
Yeah, I think Adam Watson may be thinking with his championship brain on, but I have to say that I'm looking at the car of Alex Gal at the moment, and Gal's looking for a move, but Watson's also looking for a move on Evdoka, and I mean, Evdoka will quite happily fight him, but I suspect Evdoka's got eyes forward to try and get past his teammate, score a few more points than he did in the first race here at Barcelona. But Watson's not giving up that easily. They have pulled away a little bit from Michael Gray. I thought that gap might have been a little bit bigger than it was. So I think Watson's got to think for the championship here. Something could still happen with Michael Gray. Joe Newman has come up through the field. He could put a challenge on Nathan Moore as well. I'm surprised to not see him moving up. And actually, there we go. Joe Newman putting on a challenge of Michael Gray, but I just don't think he was close enough. And you can see the size difference between that Audi and the Mustang. The Mustang is so long, as you said at the end of qualifying, long wheelbase car. And to be honest, when you put those two together, you really see it.
Having stood next to one of those Audis in a pit lane, I can tell you they're not a small car either. So those Mustangs are massive, and it does show, but that Ford seem to be able to get it working and have been getting it dialed in slowly but surely. And here in the sim, teams are learning what the foibles are of that car, as Alex Gal looking to the inside of Adam Watson, Joe Newman looking to the inside of Michael Gray. Not quite alongside enough for Newman, but enough for Alex Gal in front of Watson.
Yeah, Alex Gal making the move past Watson. Excellent move by Gal. He can get his eyes forward, making up for that slowdown that he had in the opening stages of this race. Joe Newman not quite having the mid-corner speed, but as you say, Ford really dialing in that car. It had its issues at the start of the season in the real world. Obviously, the spontaneously combusting boot lids were the biggest one. We have seen that a couple of times in the sim as well, but that all seems to have settled down now, and the car's getting quicker. We're starting to see them more and more in series across the world. I think there's rumours of one that's actually going to be running the UK next year, so I'm quite interested to see how it's going to go on UK circuits. Obviously quite tight, quite twisty, really the opposite of Barcelona when you think about most of them, other than maybe Silverstone. So it's a car that's really gaining some traction in the GT world. Of course, Ford did very well back in the GTE days, a car that we would have seen here in the World GT Championship as well. But it was a long wheelbase car. It was a wide car, but I have to say, Paul, having stood next to one of those on the grid at Silverstone, not very tall.
No, it wasn't. I mean, the whole reason why a GT40 was called GT40 is because, and talking about the car from the 60s, was because it was 40 inches from the roof of the car to the road. So it was an extremely low down car. Yeah, certainly the GTE car sort of followed similar ethos in design concept. Now, looking a little bit further back in your top 10, it's James Boumé and Alex Davidson, these two fighting it out. Now, in terms of the Pro Championship, Boumé's 119 points going into this week behind Davidson. He will have lost some more points to him from race number 1 of the evening. If I'm Davidson, I'm not trying to make any drastic moves forward here, because the closest championship protagonist right now is Jack Sedgwick, and he finished 8th in that first race.
See, if I was Alexander Davidson, I'd be letting Ross and Michael do all the work here. You've got a perfect chance to put aside my view on team orders and the fact I, to be honest, don't really like them. You've got a perfect chance here to use some team orders, put some 2 drivers ahead who can do all the hard lifting and allow Alexander Davidson to follow through. But Davidson obviously deciding he wants to take the heavy brunt. There's actually Sedgwick moving for the lead down into the hairpin. Hasn't quite got it done. Looks like Axel Slivovic has kept it going, but Alexander Davidson finally passed James Boumé, and Boumé is now under attack from 2 more WSR Esports. Back to the lead of the race, side by side as they head through turn number 11 down into the final 2 right-handers of the circuit. And it looks as though Slivovic has kept it in the lead for now.
Yes, and that's the key thing. And I do get the feeling that Axel is just holding things up a little bit here at the front of the field. Across the line, we get the first of our 5-lap averages, and well, surprise, surprise, the fastest cars on the track are 2nd, 3rd and 4th, but they have got a little bit of a slipstream over Axel Slivovic. Now, it's a question of, can these two make it work and be able to move past? Because Sedgwick we know what a hard charger he is. He's the reigning champion at the moment, is Jack, and it took a bit of hard work, but he finally got that championship under his belt. Victor Wolfson, new to the championship this season, and has shown glimpses of it. He's got a race win under his belt, so Victor knows that he can do things. As Boumet's dropped down to 9th behind McFarlane and Evdoka, so the two other WSR cars have gone through.
And that was really close. They were heading 3 wide into turn number 7 with James Boumet, Alex Gal and Evdoka. Evdoka's got through. Gal hasn't quite been able to. I don't know whether Evdoka went for a little bit of a last-minute lunge on the driver of Boumet. Not quite sure there. Axel Sluitvich holding on to the lead still, but Jack Sedgwick, as you say, a hard charger, putting on a challenge for the lead. And it was great to finally see him get that championship, Paul. He's been trying for so many years. A driver who was around in this series when we were driving in it all those seasons ago. So it's great to see. We're going to go back and look at a replay of Michael Evdoka down the inside of James Boumet. Got the move down the mid-corner, but ran him wide on the exit, and that gave Alex Gal an opportunity to get his nose down the inside, but didn't quite have the overspeed. I think wasn't quite brave enough on the brakes to get through on Evdoka, but side by side with Boumet as they headed up the hill. But Boumet's got the inside into the next corner. That's always going to reign supreme. Sedgwick to the outside into the first corner. They're going to go front to rear wheel through the first 2 turns, but again, not quite enough for the Ferrari.
Yeah, it's just not quite Ferrari weather. It's just not quite a Ferrari circuit. But if you look at it, Audi, Ferrari, Ford, and then 4 Porsches all in a row behind them, and it's a wall of WSR esports that is from 5th place down to 8th. So this lead quartet is due to grow here, because Erdelai now has got onto the back of them, and Alex Davidson, Ross McFarlane, they're not that far back either as we go through the chicane. Change for 2nd place in Pro-Am. Joe Newman's ahead of Michael Gray. Meanwhile, for the race lead, Sedgwick has got the inside through 9, but he's not going to get the run out the corner, and Slijepčević going all the way over to the inside. No, you don't. Sure, the inside tie at Jack Sedgwick. Contact between the 2 of them, and well, Sedgwick forceful with his move through there. Wolfson's trying to follow him. Oh, more contact, and Slijepčević is around.
And that opened the door for Victor Wolfson to get inside there, or get alongside of Slijepčević, and that just put him offline, I think, maybe causing the spin. It just looked like, as you say, one of those lazy spins where the car just slowly goes round on you. But Jack Sedgwick finally to the lead of this race. 2 Ferraris at the front. We've got an equal match now. But Victor Wolfson, I think, wants to get to the front of this. Andres Meyer looking equally as competitive in that massive Ford Mustang in comparison to the 2 Porsches. But Ferraris, excuse me, don't count out Gabriel Adeli back in 4th position. That Porsche has been incredibly strong. And in the background, James Boumet and Alex Gal going at it through the first corner. Replay up on your screen. Oh, now I think there was some contact there, Paul.
It was side to side. Similar side to side contact to what we've seen throughout tonight's racing, actually. With 2 lines coming into one sort of situation, and one car coming off worse than the other. So we're almost quarter of the way through the race here. It's now Jack Sedgwick, reigning champion in Pro. He is the leader of this one ahead of Victor Wolfson, Anders Meyer and Gabriel Erdelai. Now, Alex Davidson is up to 5th after Slijepčević has dropped down the order there. Adam Watson, by the way, still in 10th place, your top Pro-Am driver. Joe Newman, 12th, 2nd place in Pro-Am, and Michael Gray has dropped down to 14th now in this race. He's down 2 places from where he started. He's 3rd in Pro-Am, but he's got Taylor Lane a couple of seconds back from him.
Yeah, that's
down. I was just going to say, down in Am, by the way, Jesse Payne Wilkins leading that in 19th. Ben Altria and Jonathan Walker, 2nd and 3rd, 21st, 22nd.
Yeah, so AM's looking a bit closer than maybe it was in the first race, and they've got one car between first and second, that being the pro car of Bacon Zelenko, who's had a pretty poor day today, maybe not the day he was expecting to have coming into this evening. But obviously Michael Gray dropping down to third and dropping behind Nathan Moore, that's going to have quite big championship ramifications. Alex Gal still trying to get past James Boumet, can't quite get it done. He's going to try off of turn 2 into turn 3, but I think Boumet's just going to have the optimum line into the corner. Whether Gal can have the undercut running off the corner, maybe. He has got alongside, actually. He's got the inside into this corner pull. He might get it done. He has. Through on the inside goes Alex Gal, and after so many laps of trying, he has got past James Boumet.
It's just not turning out to be James's season, this one, I don't think. And it's really been a case of what if for James throughout this championship. But you never say never in the World GT Championship as they go into the chicane once again, up the hill. Now, I remember back in the day when they used to actually go off a bit, it was a more open corner, go off into a tight section, but because of the runoff, because there was hardly any runoff there, they ended up getting rid of that portion of the track and creating that blind crested turn 9 and then down that back straight. It actually improved the circuit, did that. Who would have thought that the need of greater runoff would improve the circuit?
I mean, we have seen it at places. I mean, Spa, obviously, we've got the increased runoff in certain places, and with the new Spa that's come to iRacing this season, we've seen a much more, obviously, modern Spa, but a very reprofiled Spa. It looks very different, and I think it's really brought the track to life a bit more, and you know, there's a lot more there for spectators to do. That grandstand up at Rouge is stunning, and if you ever go to Spa and you get a chance to sit in there, go sit right at the top. You get an excellent view across the whole of the circuit, and it's definitely something I'm looking forward to being able to do next year. But as you say, actually, yeah, extra runoff, improving the circuit, and that blind right-hander through turn 9. I think it's quite a tricky one to get right, because you can very easily end up in the gravel on the outside there.
Yeah, it's a corner that when you get it right, it's great. You get such a good run down the straight towards turn number 10. The problem is with the turn 10 that we're running, it's just a little bit of a lesser braking zone. Joe Newman's dropping down the order. I don't know what's happened to him, but he was in second place in Pro-Am. He's dropping down now behind Harry Langford, who's alongside him. Langford, the sole driver, well, one of the drivers flying the flag is Harry, and for his team, again, it's been a challenging season for the Quatermass motorsport driver of Harry Langford, but he's certainly trying to push forward. And that car behind Joe Newman, by the way, Chris Chatterton, has no front clip. As here we go, this is what happened to Joe.
So unlucky, the rear end just snapped through the corner, and Joe Newman having to collect it back up. Lucky to lose more positions. There was a nice gap for him to rejoin back into as we ride on board with that noseless Chris Chatterton in the 16. That will be affecting his front aero. Maybe one of the drivers we're going to see take the early pit stop in this race. Come in, get the fast repair, get your pit stop done, and get back out onto the circuit. Get some nice consistent laps under your belt to get it to the end of the race. Not quite sure where that happened for the 16, and where he's lost his nose. I haven't seen a light blue Ferrari nose for sale yet on eBay, so keep your eyes out. You might see one yet this evening.
The Ferrari spares department will be delighted to take his custom, that is for sure, as we go through this long turn number 3. The left-hand tyres in particular around this track take a real punishment, and I wouldn't be surprised if you see drivers taking tyres at the pit stop. Certainly to take 2 tyres if nothing else, but you know, these drivers, they do feel it, especially at the end of an hour-long race, if they don't take tyres.
I think we will see a I definitely think we'll see a one-tyre stop round here. I suspect with the amount of fuel these drivers will need... I actually say that. You're only going to need about 20 minutes of fuel here, Paul. I think that might be quite tight for getting 2 tyres in time. Maybe people will go, oh, okay. Paul is gesturing to me that it will be a 2.
From previous rounds with these special events, it usually is 2 tyres that they take in the end.
So my misjudgment, or my judgment on how many tyres I can take in a pit stop is obviously slightly off after my misjudgment at Indianapolis the other week in taking 2 tyres when I really should have only taken 1. But I don't think we'll see any 4 tyre stops here. We will, if it's going to be 2 tyres, you want to change those lefts. The right tyres don't really get used much round here. There's only sort of a handful of corners. Those left sides though really do take a punishing, and actually I think one of those drivers who I wouldn't be surprised if they're starting to suffer is Andreas Meyer up in 3rd position, who we're currently watching. We just saw Gabriel Adeli really putting the pressure on the previous lap. I think those front tyres especially, where all the weight is going to be on that Mustang. I know in the front engine cars nowadays, they pretty much put the engine in the driver's footwell, but it is going to start to really attack those front tyres in the coming minutes.
Joe Newman is taking even more of a tumble down the order on the timing screen, and he's not having fun out there this race. So issues for Joe after such a promising start to this race as well, getting involved in that Pro-Am battle. Here's a look at what happened down the inside. I'm going to say there's contact here. Yeah. Or he's just not alongside enough to make that move stick.
No, he sort of put his nose in, he tried, but I don't think it was quite enough space to warrant the space he wanted into the corner. Contact occurred and around is gone. So Joe Newman now going to be spending the next 38 minutes and 10 seconds on a recovery drive from this one in that Pro-Am Championship. As you say, after the promise we saw in the first one, it's a shame to see him flounder in the second one, but he's down in 25th position. He's got a few Pro-Am cars ahead of him. He can make those positions back.
Would you pit if you're Newman now, because he will have put a ton of heat through those tyres? Would you pit now, get a couple of fresh tyres anyway, just to have cooler tyres to help you? Yeah, it's going to mess with the balance of the car to start with, but you can make it to the end.
You could make it to the end from here. It maybe would require a tiny bit of fuel saving, but you definitely could do it. It might be an idea to do it. And in fact, actually, we're starting to see cars. Here we go. The first car onto the pit lane, as I potentially predicted. It is the noseless Chris Chatterton coming in, and I suspect that will be for fast repair. Definitely taking tyres as the car has gone up on the jacks. So fuel, tyres, and a new front end on that Ferrari. And someone in Maranello is laughing at the bill that has just been paid by the Prestanda Nomad team.
Yeah. You're talking about 25-30 grand for a front bumper, so nowadays on one of these cars it's crazy money, absolutely crazy, what you're paying for parts on these cars, and some of the pro drivers who are not having to foot the bills in real life, they just throw these cars around and with reckless abandon and don't really care. It's the quote-unquote gentleman drivers who are footing the bill that are there going, please, no, get some gaffer tape or something, just fix it, we don't want to get new parts.
And that is actually a really important factor, especially in this style of racing, GT racing, endurance racing. 9 times out of 10, there is someone at the end of it picking up a bill who, yes, some of these drivers might not care that they write off 50 grand's worth of carbon fibre and lights, but someone somewhere's got to pay for it. And, you know, once you start thinking about that, all of a sudden a program which is going to cost you 300,000 euros to go racing in Europe in one of these cars might cost you closer to £500,000, £750,000 once you include spares. Especially if you start writing off cars, it can get incredibly expensive very quickly.
Michael Gray onto pit road from Pro-Am, so he's decided now is the time. So too do a couple of other drivers. Will Guthrie's one of those, Bacon Zelenka is another. So full tilt, splitting their strategy a little bit across their team, getting drivers onto pit road now. So we're starting to see a few of those pit stops happening. Last year, I was lucky to get to talk to a couple of teams in the 24-hour series, and the interesting thing that I found out last year, TCR car, it was the Cupra that was running at that event. talking about 125 grand brand new, about half the price of a Porsche Cup car, but it costs the same as a Cup car to actually run it in the season.
See, that's really interesting, because when you think about a Cup car, and I mean, obviously a Porsche Cup car, it's an incredibly prestigious car. It's a Porsche at the end of the day. It's never going to be a cheap racing car. I'm actually surprised that, I won't say how cheap a TCR car is, but then it also doesn't surprise me when you see how many of them are running around the world. But I think I suspect probably the running costs are going to be the same between the two. I mean, I've been lucky enough to been to a number of British touring car rounds in the preceding few years, and my dad actually got talking to someone who runs one of those Porsche Cup cars, and they said the setup on them is easy. You roll them off the truck, you put 4 tyres on, and off they go. There's not a lot you can really do to those cars. So obviously a lot of the running costs for these cars is going to be in the tyres, it's going to be in the fuel, and they're not cheap. They're definitely not cheap, especially tyres. I mean, it's I've had an introduction to the world of rallying properly this year, and it's frightening how much some people spend on tyres for a single day, for a single day event. It's thousands of pounds.
Yeah, absolutely. You're talking, if you're talking European Rally Championship, you're talking a couple $100 grand per round of that championship just to run a car. It is incredible, the eye-watering nature of motorsport in the world, and that's why sim racing, it then comes to the fore a bit more as an accessible form of motorsport for people who maybe don't have the budgets to even do club racing. Spend yourself a couple of grand on a decent PC, a wheel setup, a next level rig as well, something like that, and you can get yourself some really good racing action, and you're not even having to leave the comfort of your own home.
Yeah, and that is the beauty of it. It's a place for people to go. They can get that scratch that competitive itch. That's the way I like to think of it. And you know, I will probably never be lucky enough to drive one of these cars in my life, but I can have my dinner in the evening, come upstairs, jump online with a few friends, and off I go. And I'm racing a GT3 car around Barcelona, and you know, we've got to a point, Paul, where we're seeing these simulators and iRacing get so much more in depth with the rain that's coming this year. The cars are getting better all the time, the tracks are getting better all the time, and I think we're only really now seeing the start of the technological innovation that we can see in the sim. I mean, this is going to sound really boring and technical. I've just written a 4,000 essay on how you could build generative AI into iRacing's race control system for a university assignment. So there's possibilities that we can really start to build out in the sim. Looking back towards, I think this is Joe Newman making up places. He's back up to P16. Don't be deceived, however. Pit stops have begun. Alex Gall from the front of your field is the only one so far who's come down onto the pit lane as he's riding with Mike Barber. But as you say, Paul, sim racing, an amazing way into motorsport that 20 years ago never really existed.
I'm sure if you ask Dom DeHaan from Team Redline, he'll be there saying that they've been around for just over 20 years now. Companies, equipment companies have been around for that sort of level of time as well. But no, you're absolutely right in terms of the online side of racing and of competing against each other. It really has sort of come on leaps and bounds in the last 5-6 years, has sim racing. I mean, I can remember, this is old man now talking, I can remember my first experience of online racing was on the Sega Dreamcast on the Ferrari 355 Challenge game. And it was on dial-up, so they were all ghost cars.
I mean, I know what a Sega Dreamcast is, but I will. I'll stop there, as we've had plenty of these conversations over time, comparing when I think my first experience of a racing game, let's say, was on my dad's PlayStation 1 playing Colin McRae Rally 2.0, and to this day, still one of my favourite racing games of all time. Is actually this is Andres Myri going for second position. A very last minute look down the inside into turn number 4. Wasn't quite able to make it work. Victor Wolfson is defending as they head down into 5. A little bit of contact side to side, but they both survive. It was the first time we've really seen that all evening. And Victor Wolfson, for now, holding on to second position.
Yeah, the problem for these two is look at all those WSR cars now. Just 1, 2, 3 all together, and they're all trying to move forward. The last thing that Alex Davidson wants to happen is that Meyer and Wolfson to come together and end up wiping out Davidson in all of this. So yes, it's great to be up there in 5th place and to be in this queue of traffic, but it only takes one incident, and before you know it, your race is done.
Now, I'm going to ask this question to you, Paul, because I am a team manager. I have been in this situation in the past. If you're a WSR Esports team manager right now, and you are watching this battle for second position, knowing that Alexander Davidson is in the middle of this group.
I think you've got your answer straight away.
That wasn't actually the question I was going to ask, but Alexander Davidson is down onto pit lane. He has decided to get out of the way of this. Meyer's
through! Great stuff from the Mustang, the grunt of that Mustang, down the start and finish straight, takes it up to second place. That's a move for position here on track, and look at how far wide that car is going. It is struggling through turn number 3, and here comes Erdely looking to the inside of Wolfson, but no move being made yet.
And this is where Erdely and McFarlane need to make a dent into these two, because they are Erdely going down the inside. Contact occurs. They both survive for now, but Wolfson's on the outside. Erdely's got that Porsche traction he can rely on. They're going to go side by side through the corner, very close to contact. Erdely's got the better line into the corner, and this is now going to disadvantage Wolfson. Give McFarlane the run up the hill. Erdely's going to block him as much as possible to give his teammate the chance. This is where WSR Esports need to make an impact, because Alexander Davidson will want to do the undercut on these drivers. He won't want to have to battle them. And right now, Erdely and McFarlane doing exactly what they need to do with Wolfson. But Andreas Meyer in front, he's getting away. He's opening up the gap with the battling. So Erdely really now going to have to start looking forwards.
Yeah, certainly is. And that Mustang pulling away, even though we do think it'll be punishing its front left tyre. Oh, big moment there for Wolfson through turn 12 into 13. Not compromised there, though. Now, this is where the Ferrari may have just that little bit of an advantage over the Porsche, but that Porsche, because it gets such a good run out of the corner, it carries more speed so that the Ferrari's top speed doesn't have quite the effect. Here's Will Guthrie down the inside. Oh, and around he goes. And I think that was that Bacon Zelenka, I think it was, that he was racing with. And so that means a non-change of position between those two. But it's that Porsche. The fact that it can get the run out of corners, it's carrying that speed earlier. You'd think a car with a top speed advantage in the Ferrari would do it, but it can't do it down these straights.
I remember a teammate of mine many years ago teaching me how to drive the original Porsche Cup car when we got that on iRacing, and the way he described the way to drive the car, and to be honest, it's very similar with the GT3, and it's probably why I've never been that good in this version of the GT3 car, was you want a lot of power very early, because that helps settle the rear down, squat it in and get the traction, and you really saw that on that previous lap from the overtake from Gabriel Daly in the way that the car just gripped up and went, and you kind of saw the Ferrari, it took a bit longer to get on the power. You can see there Victor Wolfson's fighting the front end through that corner, and I spent a lot of time in that Ferrari since it got released. I was part of a team that did the Ivor Endurance Championship in it last year, and it kind of drives a bit like a front engine car, really, Paul. It's an interesting car in the way it drives, and one that does punish its front tyres quite a lot. Ross McFarlane deciding he doesn't want the battle. He's going to come into the pits. Now, it's going to be interesting here, Paul, to see where he comes out in respects to Alexander Davidson. Davidson is currently heading himself into turn number 11. A little bit of traffic ahead of him, but where Ross comes out is going to give us an indication of where he's going to come out in respect to Victor Wolfson.
Taking tyres as expected is Ross McFarlane. Also Adam Watson from Pro-Am lead onto pit road. And again, the Audi driver taking tyres. Here comes Ross McFarlane out of pit road. Meanwhile, Davidson is going to go past pit exit right there. And they're still relatively close together, but I think Davidson has just got that little bit of maybe a second and a half advantage compared to Ross waiting that little bit longer.
Yeah, and also Davidson's going to have those new tyres, so that's going to be a little bit of an advantage, especially in the traction zones or through these medium speed corners. Now they're up to speed, so McFarlane's got to get the tyres up. Here we're now looking at Alexander Davidson on the main screen. You can see Jack Sedgwick down in the bottom right hand of screen of your corner. Not really spoken about him in the last 20 minutes or so, Paul, because there's not really been a lot to say. He's been out the front, he's been doing good lap times and pulling out his advantage at the front of the field. Still yet to stop, but Davidson is your leading driver who has stopped so far in this race. However, he is about to hit some traffic, a second and a half behind Ben Altria in the AM class. He's currently in a fight with Joe Newman in the Pro-Am class, so a little bit of cross-class battling going on. As on my screens I can see Gabriel Adeli has decided to come down onto the pit lane, as well as Victor Wilson, so pit stops really now starting to come through for your leaders.
Sedgwick had a little bit of traffic there as well with Adam Hedgecock, and Hedgecock getting out the way for your race leader. So Jack Sedgwick will carry on through turn 3. He's staying out a bit longer. We usually said people like James Boumé and people like that were usually the frugal ones. Well, they've pitted of Boumé and the like. As Erdely now, where's he coming out? He's coming out in front of Alex Davidson. No, he isn't. He's slotted in behind Alex Davidson. So that little fight that Erdely and McFarlane had has really cost them some time there, and it's meant that Davidson has been able to get the jump on both of them.
And actually, Victor McFarlane's also got the jump on Wilson. Wilson's been left in the clutches of Alex Gall, so a lot of time has been lost in that battle. A little bit of traffic to Davidson to contend with. That is the number 504 machine. Actually, for position, that's Ben Altria, as I mentioned earlier, the traffic that he was about, or that Davidson was about to hit. Altria yet to pit in this race, however, I expect it won't be too much longer. Jack Sedgwick is now heading around towards the end of the lap, Paul. It'll be interesting to see if he now dives down onto pit lane. I'm looking at the speed of the car. I think it might have happened. I think he's down. Yes, he's down onto pit lane. So Sedgwick is in. Myri's gone for one more. So the Ford Mustang going a little bit further on its tank of fuel. Obviously a lot of fuel saving opportunities for Myra in this race so far, being in the traffic. But your race leader down onto the pit lane.
Once again, the World GT Championship giving you great consumer advice of if you want to spend about $1 million on a race car, but you don't want to foot the bill for the fuel, get yourself a Ford Mustang. There you go. As Jack Sedgwick getting ready, he's pulling away. I think he should come out in front of Alex Davidson in all of this. Going to be a bit closer, but Sedgwick does have that advantage, and into turn number 1 Sedgwick does still have the net lead of this race, and crucially for him, he's got Joe Newman between him and Alex Davidson right now. So Davidson, if I'm at Davidson right now, I'm not really worried too much in terms of thinking about championships. I'm thinking, do you know what, I'm getting a solid amount of points. Sedgwick finished 8th in that first race. I won it. I've got a net gain over Jack coming out of this week.
Yeah, now it's going to be interesting, as you say, to see what Alexander Davidson says, does here, because obviously, as you say, Sedgwick 8th in the first race. If he finishes where he is now on the road, he will come away today with the race win. So, yes, he will be outscoring Alexander Davidson in this race, but does Davidson take the smart card, or does he go full racing driver and go for the race win? Now, it could go either way. It's yet to see, as Andreas Myra from the lead of the race down onto the pit lane. I have to say that Ford Mustang and fuel economy, I don't think have ever really been used in the same sentence before. So I have to congratulate you on that, Paul. That might be the first time in broadcasting history that those two things have been put together. as we see Myra come down and stop in his pit box. I think it's pretty certain that Sedgwick is going to take the race lead here. I think it could be close for Myra, though, coming back out as we have a spinner behind. Davidson's off. Davidson's off the road, and I think he's managed to survive that, but Gabriel Ade, his teammate, who hasn't survived that, he's down onto the pit lane.
It was Joe Newman and Erdely that have ended up with the mechanical meatball warning flags. Here we go, out of pit road. Alex Davidson is ahead of Anders Meyer through all of this, but big drama happening behind Davidson. Well, actually, it was right in front of Davidson, in fact, because, of course, remember, it was Newman who was between Sedgwick and Davidson in this race. Well, we'll get a replay. Here we go, then. So this is Joe Newman going into turn 12. And, what on earth has happened there?
He's braked. Is he braked to let them through and hit the sausage dog curb?
That's what it looks like has happened. Yeah, he's hit the brakes, pulled over. The problem is, hits that sausage curb. Oh, I tell you what, the stewards will not take they'll take quite a dim view on that.
This race hasn't really, oh my word, it's even worse from the onboard. I'm not usually savage on commentary to people, but I think Newman could have dealt with that a lot better than he did. I know he probably wanted to let those WRE Sports Porsches around, but wow, from the onboard you can see it. It could be that he just didn't see those sausage dog curves, but with the amount of laps that I'm sure Newman has done, he should have known they were there. That was just a little bit sloppy.
And it comes back to the old endurance sort of style of driving, isn't it? That if you're the quote-unquote faster car coming through, you're wanting predictability from that car in front, aren't you? As Nathan Moore now finally comes onto pit road for his pit stop. You're wanting that predictability from the car in front, and when you have something like that happen, that Joe Newman did there, it's very unpredictable, and even he couldn't predict what would happen over those curbs. No,
and I'm not sure whether anyone really could have predicted what was going to happen, especially when the car went airborne. At that point, Newman's a passenger, and for the 77, all they could do was turn into the corner and hope, and it just, hope wasn't enough, unfortunately. So, yeah, it's a shame. It's a very interesting incident. It's one that I'm not sure I've ever seen that before, Paul. Not in that way. But as you say, predictability, especially when you're trying to get through traffic, it's so important. And for people out there who are maybe thinking of getting into multi-class racing, doing some GT racing where there's prototypes out on class, from a prototype driver's perspective, be predictable, just run, that one of the rules I seem to remember watching this, I think it was back in the Truth in 24 films. I don't know if you remember those, Paul, with Audi made back in the late 2000s, early 2010s, and there was an interview part with Alan McNish towards the start, and he kind of said that it's the faster car's responsibility to overtake safely. The slower car should just stick to their line, let the faster car do the work, and that is so true in multi-class racing. But racing like this, where everyone's in the same car, but you've got the different levels of driver ability. You always end up in a bit of a multi-class situation where you have faster drivers coming through the pack, and maybe it was inexperience from Joe Newman, I don't know, but it clearly was a mistake, a miscalculated one at that, and it's led to some very, very big ramifications.
And Alex Davidson will be breathing a huge sigh of relief there and all of that as well. So, mistakes happen. These things happen, and Joe will be the first person to hold his hand up and say, yeah, I messed up that one, really sorry, I'll take the punishment on the chin. So it's nothing that was deliberate or anything like that, it's just a mistake that's happened. Anyway, let's not dwell on that, because we've had all the pit stops happen. It is Jack Sedgwick who's the leader here in this race, 2.4 seconds clear of Alex Davidson in second place. And then you've got Anders Meyer, third place, great position for the Ford Mustang driver. And then we've got this battle for fourth place. Victor Wolfson, Ross McFarlane Victor is quite the feisty driver, so yeah, certainly he will be hard to get past here in this one. Michael Gray has been able to jump Adam Watson in the pit stop phase, and that means that Michael Gray moves back ahead of him into the Pro-Am lead of this race, and possibly in the championship as well. We'll get points. Oh, McFarlane nose to the inside of Wolfson. A little bit of a rub between the two of them as well. Wolfson carries the speed on the outside and will stay clear for now. Reece Saunders, good drive from Reece. 14 places gained up into third place in Pro-Am. So really good result, or race for him so far. Jesse Payne Wilkins, 14th in AM. That's, again, a really good score if they can manage to hold on to that position there. The next best AM is Ben Altria in 16th. And then you've got to go down to Jonathan Walker in 21st to get third place in class. So that's how things stand right now. I just get the feeling, Jack, that Ross is getting a bit anxious to get past Victor here.
Yeah, I get that same feeling as well. Obviously, there's a team's championship as well for WSR Esports to think about. So knowing that the 77 of Gabriel Daly is going to be sort of, well, a non-scorer. He's not come back out onto the circuit, and it looks as though it may be day done for the 77. Ross has got a job to do now to try and score as many points as possible. Obviously, the contact we saw up at turn number 11 a few moments ago, I think actually gave Victor Walston a bit of an advantage where he was able to get a better run off the corner. And you saw that Ross didn't quite have the momentum off the corner to put a challenge in for another sort of half a lap or so. So they are closer together again, but I wouldn't say Ross is quite close enough for a challenge, and I think he knows that as well. But now you're going to see the advantages of the Porsche coming through, that traction really showing against the Ferrari. He's going to go up the inside into turn number 11. He's got it done, and I don't think Victor Walston really had much of a defense there, and you can see the traction off the corner for that Porsche. It is so strong, as well, with Ross being on actually older tyres. I was about to say Ross is on newer tyres just from the way the car was looking, but he's not. He's on a lap older tyres than Victor, but a nice move done by Ross. He's going to get his head down, try and hunt down that Mustang of Anders Myhre. But knowing the pace of these drivers so far this evening, Paul, and with only 13 minutes left in the race, it's going to be 8 laps, including the one they've just started. I'm not sure it's going to be enough time for Ross to make up 5 seconds, you know.
No, I think this is going to be his result for the night, but what this is doing is getting the team some really good points in the bank, because remember, between them and Altitude Esports, there was just 9 points going into this week in the Pro Teams Championship. Now, Dennis Grabowski has had an awful day at the office. Axel Slijepčević down in 8th place. He's not having much fun, and James Boumet as well in 10th place. Compared to the WSR Esports butt kicker team, they are not having a strong day, or Altitude Esports, that is for sure. Well, we're on board with Alex Gall. He's looking ahead now to Victor Wolfson, looking for 5th place now after Victor's lost that place to Ross McFarlane. McFarlane is slowly pulling away, nearly a second now between him and Victor Wolfson. So Ross showing the pace of that Porsche, and you're absolutely spot on, Jack, when it comes to this section through turns 10, 11, 12 and 13. That Porsche just seems so planted, whereas these Ferraris, they've looked a little bit sketchy even through this corner.
Yeah, and if you think about where we've seen the overtakes happen for the Porsches all evening long, I wouldn't say it's into the big braking zones, like down into turn 1 that these drivers are now going to be approaching. It's all in key attraction zones, out of turn 4, out of turn 5, out of turn 7, through turn 11. And I think that's really showing that these drivers, the WSR Esports drivers, understand the strength of that car, and that really is the traction. And you know, you go to Daytona, I don't think it's actually going to be the strongest car, and Alexander Davison clearly probably actually knows that, so making the most of it is going to be important. The Ferrari is going to come into its own come Daytona. I think it's a circuit that will suit that car a bit better. It's good in a straight line, it's good through mid-speed corners, so you know, I think Jack Sedgwick and co are in a good position to really put a battle on. Same with Josh Thompson. Obviously I know he's going to be a non-scorer in this race. That is going to put him on a back foot for the championship going into the final 2 rounds. But as I've said before, anything can happen. We saw it at the start of this race with Josh going out of this one, and we've seen it, you know, all race long really, and it can be a bit unpredictable. But Jack Sedgwick at the front of the field, it also proves, I think, that once the Ferrari can get into its sort of breathing room and stretch its legs, it's just as fast around this circuit as the Porsches.
Yeah, it seems to be getting in that clear air, and it seems to be fine. It's when it's in and around other cars that it seems to struggle that little bit. And if you've ever stood next to one of these cars, these Ferraris, in real life, you'll have a look at the front and the back end, and you'll just see how much the front end channels the air around the car, and how the diffuser at the back, really, it's just a complex work of art, is that car. And they've really made a step change with that Ferrari 296 GT3. Michael Evdoka, though, getting a really good look at the diffuser there of the Ferrari in front of Alex Gall. And Evdoka, it's worth mentioning as well, he's another one who's been gaining places. 10 places gained in this race.
Evdoka obviously not having the race one he would have wanted with the incident at the start of the race with Denis Gabrovski. So he's been making his way up through the field, and actually Gabrovski's been doing the same, albeit very quietly. He was making his way up through the field. Paul, he's currently down in 22nd position, so has made up 11 places on where he started, but not really made too much more progress beyond that. Eyes a bit further back in the field as we head into the final 10 minutes of the race. Will Guthrie and the driver of Mike Barber, Audi versus Ferrari. And again, this is going to be quite an interesting one, because these two drivers, they've been close all day long, very close on pace when I look at their last. But it looks as though Guthrie's got the pace when it comes to the best laps, about half a second faster than Mike Barber's best in this second race in that Audi. So it could be one where Guthrie's going to get past really easily, but I don't think Barber's going to make it that easy for them.
Our producer, he knows how to please the YouTube audience as well, because Verano Motorsports and Mike in particular has got quite the fan club in the YouTube chat, but they won't like seeing him losing that place to Will Guthrie there. But Mike has gained 8 places in this race so far. Unfortunately, it would have been 9, but just losing that place as well. Jason Brooks in the chat also asking, saying he hasn't seen one Lambo. That's because there isn't one on track. We've got Ferraris, we've got Porsches, we've got Fords, we've got Audis, we've got Corvette out there as well. And there is a McLaren, but that's sat on pit road right now. So there is a real mix of cars, just no Lamborghinis out there though.
Yeah, maybe a car that's fallen out of favour a little bit. It's a shame not to see it out on the track, because it is a very capable car. Now, this is a battle that could have big championship ramifications. Alexander Davidson is he's obviously thinking championship, hasn't put too much of a charge onto Jack Sedgwick's lead. He's been quite happy settling for second place, as you suggested, Paul, and trying to make the most of it. But Anders Meyri, I think, smelts blood, and he's already on the podium. He can see a second position. It's the closing stages of this race, 5 laps to go at the end of this one. I think we could see you know, Anders Meyri really putting on a battle here. I think Alexander Davidson should be smart and not fight.
Anders Meyri, it's worth noting, 5 lap average. Alex Davidson 42.196, Meyri 41.873. That's on average for the last 3 laps. So about 0.3 of a second per lap faster in that Ford Mustang. And look at it, we know it's got grunt, we know it's got some top end down the straight here. He's got a slipstream with that Porsche, pulls out to the inside. Davidson's going to hang on to it though, but Meyri signalling his intent here to try and get past Alex Davidson.
Meyri didn't have the overlap that time, and Davidson also showing another strength of that Porsche is the brakes. It can stop well, and if you on the low fuel, you can get it rotated in, because the weight transfer, or the weight distributions, you know, it's much more in favor of getting the pace out of that car. You haven't got a lot of weight on the front and on the back, because obviously the fuel tank in the Porsche, it being an anomaly with the engine in the back, fuel tanks in the front. So as the race goes on, the car does get lighter on the front end, but Maya really tried that time, Paul. He had a very, very, very minute overlap, but it wasn't quite enough. He's just watching him through that section of corners. Davidson very, very conservative on the sausage dog curves. Maya attacking them hard.
Yeah, and I think it's because of that long wheelbase Ford, it's a lot more stable over the curbs. It really helps with the stability over bumps and curb strikes, so that's where that Ford does seem to have that little bit of an advantage over the Porsche in front of it. It's Germany versus the USA in terms of car manufacturers. Like we say, 3 manufacturers in the top 3. Good mix here. Now Maya's a bit further back this time, so I don't see him making a move at this point. And across the line they go again, and this time Davidson 0.3 of a second quicker that last lap, and it just shows that little bit of a gap now.
Yeah, that little bit of gap has grown on the previous lap. I just wonder whether Maya's struggling through the last sector, because he was close. He has gained a little bit back coming into turn number 1 that time, but it's going to be one that's going to ebb and flow through the closing stages of this race. Our eyes further back once again into the field. This is Will Guthrie. He's got past Mike Barber. We saw that on our screens. He's now taken the fight up to the Altitude Esports driver of Bacon Zelenka, another one who's maybe not had the day he wanted here at Barcelona. And Will Guthrie, he wants the points. He's going to go for it. Audi versus Audi, so it's equal fight when it comes to the manufacturers. It's been a topic we've been talking about all day long, and where the strengths and weaknesses are, but throw all of that out the window. It's probably going to come down to driver skill. They're going to have 3 laps remaining as they cross the stripe this time, and Guthrie maybe not close enough to take a challenge into turn number 1, but you can see how much effect that draft has. Not close enough though.
I just want to give quick mention as well to the driver who's in front of these two, Josh Boot. Remember, had hardware issues at the start in the last race, and had to start this race from the very back of the grid. He's up 18 places from 35th to 17th. That's a heck of an effort for the Atomic Esports Evo driver out there.
Yeah, an amazing effort from Josh Boot. He's a great talent. I had the pleasure of commentating on in the World Sports Car Championship, and you know, he was always a force to be reckoned with in GT4 Am, and in quite a few cases taking the fight to the GT4 Pro drivers, and the Pro field was incredibly skilled in the season that we had earlier on this year. So credit to Josh Boot, up 18 places in a tough race, and a circuit that we're seeing is tough to pass on, Paul. Running a wall with Alex Gall in the Ferrari, looking at the rear of Victor Wolfson, and again you can see how difficult it is to close the gap, to even get alongside to attempt to pass.
We go through the right-hander at turn 3, a little bit of a wiggle from Gall's car, not cooperating exactly how he would have wanted for that one, but into turn 4 they go, and similar cars, well, same cars, similar setups. It's a case of who's done what with their cars. Victor Wolfson, tyres are a lot younger. Alex Gall was one of the earlier stoppers. This is lap 19 for Alex Gall on this stint compared to lap 13 for Victor, but Alex just seems to have that little bit of edge of pace as here we go. Will Guthrie back once again with Bacon Zelenka. Don't make contact. No, they don't. They stay together, and we're under 2 minutes remaining. Will Guthrie wants those extra points.
Yeah, those extra points are going to be vital, obviously, for him. And Mike Barber, he's looking down the inside. The fighting through turn 1's allowed Barber to come back into this. He may be staging up an opportunity at passing Will Guthrie in the closing stages of this race. They're going to have this lap and 1 more remaining. Your leader of Jack Sedgwick has crossed the line to begin the final lap of this second 60-minute race of the evening. But Will Guthrie, I don't think he's giving up here, Paul. He's going to give it everything all the way to the line. Quick update on the battle for P2 that we were looking at just a few laps ago. Unfortunately, Anders Meyer, I think, has had his opportunity, Paul. I think the front tyres have finally decided that they've had enough on that Ford Mustang. He's dropped back just a little bit from Alexander Davidson, and he won't be close enough for a battle on this final lap.
Well, speaking of the final lap, Nathan Healy has just picked up a black flag and will have to come down pit road, serve a drive-through penalty. Meanwhile, Victor Wolfson, Alex Gall still absolutely together, and it's nothing to separate these two. Great stuff to see, but no moves being made yet. Time is running out for Gall to make any moves out there, that is for sure. Only a few spots really remaining, and maybe it's a run out of there up through turn 9 that could give Gall an opportunity. He's got to be careful because Michael Avdoka's loitering within 10, but I don't think they're quite close enough to make the move and to make it stick here. Still side by side, Zelenka and Guthrie, and Guthrie's going to get that one done, is he? The answer is maybe. It's still side by side. Meanwhile, your race leader is going to be coming through the final turn, and it's Jack Sedgwick. He takes the win here. Second race of the evening, and Jack Sedgwick, winner here in that Inex racing car. As they come across the line, Davidson, great first and second place in tonight's racing. Oh, Guthrie and Zelenka still together, and they're still side by side. They've almost been side by side half a lap, and finally, Will Guthrie gets the move done there. Michael Gray comes across the line. He takes a victory here in Pro-Am in the second race of the evening, finishing one place ahead of his championship rival. Contact between Zelenka and Guthrie. They're still fighting to the very end. Your top am, Jesse Payne Wilkins, is going to be 14th place for Jesse, and there we are, already crossed the line. Great result for the full tilt competition driver. These two though, to the end, it's going to be Bacon Zelenka who just holds on to that position. What a race between those two at the end.
Great battling between those two in the end, as you say, and very close to disaster. I think Guthrie might be a little bit tongue-in-cheek about the contact down at the hairpin at turn 10, but it was Bacon Zelenka that won out of those two, and what a fantastic race that we saw there. Nathan Healy, I think, is going to be the final car to come across the line in the 187, but a good race. It was a race that saw a lot of surprises, Paul, and 60 minutes of racing around here. It's a circuit that I think, as I said about 10 minutes ago, it's shown it's been difficult to pass on, but we saw some good battling.
Yeah. See, you might not have had the battles at the very front, but we still had some good racing further down. Across the line comes the final few. So we will be able to give you your provisional race results then for race number 2 of the evening. 60 minutes of action around Barcelona, and it's Jack Sedgwick who wins by 2.1 seconds over Alex Davidson. Great day in the office for Alex Davidson. First and second place for him. Anders Meyer third, a good podium for the Mustang, finishing less than a second behind Alex Davidson, with Ross McFarlane fourth ahead of Victor Wolfson and Alex Gall, the two battling to the end. Michael Avdoka seventh ahead of Axel Slijeptrovic and Nathan Moore, with James Boumet rounding out the top 10. Michael Gray is the top Pro-Am driver in this second race of the evening. He wins by a comfortable margin over Adam Watson in 12th place overall. Rhys Saunders, good result for Rhys, up 14 places into 13th. Jesse Payne Wilkins then, the next driver in 14th, is your top AM driver. Finishes ahead of Harry Langford. The second place AM driver of Ben Altria in 16th ahead of Josh Bacon Zelenka. Will Guthrie, who we saw battling right to the very end, along with Mike Barber. Jonathan Walker is third placed in AM in 21st overall, ahead of Dennis Grabowski, Ben Gregory, Simon Andre Livingston, Paul Webster, Adam Hedgecock, the last driver on the lead lap, Ben Bennyworth and Nathan Healy, one lap down each, and then those who did not finish, Joe Newman and Gabriel Erdley with that huge incident at turn number 12, Chris Chatterton, Taylor Lane, Andy Shield, Ben Hackerson, and Josh Thompson does not see the checkered flag. Well, what that does probably mean is that we won't get our weekly update from Josh Thompson, that we seem to be getting recently this season. But Jack, race number 2 of the evening, it was a Jack who won, Jack Sedgwick. I mean, what do you say about that?
I mean, it was an excellent race by Jack Sedgwick all the way through. He had a good starting position, made the most of it in the very early stages, and to be honest, once he got into the lead pool, we barely talked about him. And he just commanded from the front, and it's exactly what you would expect from someone who has been around in this series for so long, a champion of these series now, and the defending champion from last season. So Jack Sedgwick, I think, really putting on a show as to why he deserves to be at the front of the field, why he deserves to be a champion in this series today.
Yeah, certainly a good drive from Jack, but Alex Davidson, you're absolutely right, has done a great job. Well, you've not got long to wait for action here, because in just 1 week's time we head on over to Road America, to Cheese Country in Wisconsin, and well, it's certainly one that you will not want to miss, that is for sure. It's an endurance race, and it will have big effect on who's going to be going into that final week of the championship. 21st of October, 8 PM British time. I have to say, thank you very much to Jack Sedgwick stepping into Peter Mackay's boots for today. I've been Paul Smith. Hugo Luis has been behind the scenes on production. It's been a good day at the office for Alex Davidson in his Pro Championship title championship run. And well, a first and a second place for today. It's certainly done him some good stead. Until next week, from me and everybody here at RaceSpotTV, it's goodbye.